Nobody's listening. Pasta. His bolognese is not as great as the bolognese I had in Italy.
Hey, how we doing over here? Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella, here with the top news stories of the Combo Couch.
Oh, stop it. Will you, please? And Oz is on the ones and twos. What are you doing, fam? What are you doing?
I get anxiety now that if I'm not working, like especially with this story. So the Combo Couch keeps me sane so I can still talk about this stuff because there's so much to talk about. And first of all, now that everybody's here or everybody's trickling in, guys.
Hold on. There's still not a lot of people here. It's still just growing.
It's okay. It's okay. You guys better share this one. Because, well, I know there's a couple people on right now, and but I just wanted to say tomorrow I will be doing a live stream rant, a special talk about a lot of things. I'm going to be addressing the Caleb situation in terms of the statement that I have from him, what I think of it. I'm going to address the what's been happening here and what I've been going through and all that. And I'm going to address a lot of things that may piss people off. Tongue twister. And so, yeah, I'm really, really sick and tired of a lot of people who really think they're perfect, and who think everybody should be perfect, and who don't have empathy for people when they're going through shit. And I think like the left was supposed to be that, right? And if you're not the left, and if you're the anti-establishment or you're XYZ, whatever, you don't consider yourself anything, you're supposed to be different than the establishment. And I just feel like there's a lot of empathy. There's a lot of accusations. There's a lot of not knowing what you're talking about going on. And I think for the majority, our audience is great and well aware of this. But for those who may not be, I think it's necessary to have that conversation. I'm also sick of all the egos and all the drama. And we sort of talked about it with the Bank Sisters, but it's really ridiculous. I'm going to say this before we get started on this very tragic story that also has me pretty fucking angry, to be honest. The way some of these people who come into media, like the Vanguard, captivate the attention of people and who give them this platform that they would never give other people, like Vanessa Bailey, like Eva Bartlett. I would appreciate if Aaron would go on their shows or would talk to them more than going on these kids' shows where he's just going to get, smeared and attacked. And I think this whole gotcha is for clicks for these people that just, their show is like TMZ. And you shouldn't play into that. You shouldn't play into that. And there's just so many things that are going on right now in media. And it's just so stupid. Especially, it's just easier to spot it once you're here. And so, yeah, I'm going to talk about a lot of that tomorrow. But today we're going to start with Darya Dugina. And we have a guest coming on in, I'm sorry, what?
No, I was just going to say amen to that, fam. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I told the Vanguard, like, if they, when they made some statements about, like, at one point, about Tulsi and certain bills, one time about ivermectin and whatnot. And I said, okay, well, let me come on your show and we'll talk about it. So they didn't want to have me come on their show. You know what I'm saying? So whatever.
People who don't do that, it's because they don't want to be challenged. They don't want to be challenged. It's that simple. And that goes for anybody who refuses. It's because they don't want to be challenged by somebody that may know more than they do. So yeah, it's just dumb. Anyway, we're going to talk about Darya Dugina. We have a guest coming on, and the guest is going to talk to us about Panama. We meant to have this guest before, but they had a situation. So now we're going to have the guest. So this story really happened while it was like the first or second night I was off work. And so I know it was a big deal because it happened in Moscow, not necessarily in the center, but in the greater Moscow area, right? And there was a bomb, a blast that was put in the daughter of Alexander Dugin's car. Now, her name is Darya, and she was a journalist and an analyst, kind of following in the footsteps of her father. And this, she was driving an SUV, and there was this bomb that was put into the SUV, and it completely blasted the car. It was engulfed in flames, and then after that, of course, she was burned to the point of not being recognized. There's no recognition of the person, and this was after she attended an event with her father. So I'm just going to read slide 7, Oz. So this is what a couple of things that RT put out, because obviously Russian media was on this all over the place. And so according to the Russian Investigative Committee, the explosive device ripped through the Toyota Land Cruiser she was driving in the Moscow region area near the village of Bolshy Vyazmy on Saturday night. And it was reported that the vehicle belonged to her father. And so there was, the agency said it has already been established that the explosive was planted under the bottom of the car in the driver's seat. Darya Dugina, who was driving, was killed on impact. And they believe the attack to have been premeditated and a contract job. So they have been investigating, right? And I'm going to update you guys on what's been happening, but they've been investigating and trying to figure out biological, genetic, chemical, and explosive forensics, basically, and adding that a recording from the SUV's dash cam had also been retrieved, and they were working on identifying suspects. So basically this happened after they were at a festival, and he was giving a lecture on tradition and history, and she attended, and she had planned to leave the festival with, he had planned to leave the festival with her, but then they decided to take separate cars. If you heard of Dugin in the West, you may have a negative view of him because he's largely used by the synthetic left as, he's called a fascist. He's called a Nazi. He's called everything you think under the weather.
The Daily Beast, fam. Right out of the gate, fam. The Daily Beast.
Yeah, if you have it, if you want to add it in there at the end of the section, go ahead, because I wanted to sort of highlight what the media has been doing. So the media has been leading with.
I was going to do newspaper guy.
Okay, so the media has been focused on him being like, the Putin's voice, the voice of Putin, Putin's influencer, the major guy behind Putin. God, I forgot to put Mark Sloboda's, but I'll read some of what Mark said. But this is what he's known as in Western media, right? And despite that, he's actually never enjoyed an endorsement from the Kremlin. He's actually been denounced by the Kremlin itself because of his views, because way back in 2014, he was urging for the I don't want to say murder, but like pretty much like the retaliation from Russia on the fascists killing the people in the Donbass. That's what he was urging for. He was talking about the people killing and committing these war crimes. And so for that, when the media put it out, they said, oh, he wants all Ukrainians to die. It wasn't the case. Now, this guy's a nationalist, just like his daughter was. And the nationalist in the terms of Russia doesn't necessarily mean what a nationalist means in terms of Nazi Germany or what it means in the West in general, as we look at nationalism as a negative thing. When you look at a country that has had to deal a lot with Western hegemony and has been countlessly vilified for centuries at this point by the West, they have to have some sort of pride and resilience in what they stand for as a nation. So that is what the way this nationalism is viewed. Like, we want our own identity, we want our sovereignty, we want to be able to make our own decisions. And that can be said about many nations in the global South as well, and many nations in Africa and West Asia, because there has to be a pride of, this is who we are and why we're standing against this attempt to control and subvert what we believe in and our values. Darya, really espoused very similar views to that, very, very much saw what was going on in Ukraine and the Donbass as genocide and murder, and was an ardent spokesperson against what was going on, right? There is zero evidence showing that this woman was a fascist or a Nazi. The only thing she said was, I support Russia's military intervention. I support what they're doing, fighting back. That's not fascism. That's not Nazism. That's a sense of nationalist pride. You can disagree with it if you'd like, but to call somebody a Nazi is just completely inaccurate, right? So let's go ahead and play this video. This is just a quick summary from RT, where my colleague Ewan O'Neill was had a little segment. Yeah,
I got to say something. I'll riff while Oz is setting this thing up real quick. Fam, it is kind of awful, and I have the article in the from the Daily Beast in the bottom of the section. But there was somebody who was being made fun of on Twitter that he always puts a Nazi Hitler thing on people's pictures, and he did it at DeSantis for what DeSantis was trying to do. And they're like, give this guy a marker in 2 seconds, he'll put it on anybody at any time, because that's what they do. It's the smear. He's a fascist, he's a far right, he's a Nazi, and it's just it's getting boring and lame at this point. I mean, does anybody even believe this shit? You got that video?
Yeah, they do.
Wait. Yeah, I'll shut up now.
Well, the theatre director and creator of the Tradition Festival that the Dugins had been attending believes it was a terrorist act, taking into account how much Alexander Dugin is focused upon in the West.
Darya
was among the most serious experts and analysts of processes in the post-Soviet space. Her expertise was recognized as very competent and used by leading outlets. This blow was struck very carefully. This is certainly a terrorist act. I have almost no doubt about it. I think that Dugin is the number 2 person in the media world after Putin in terms of the degree of hatred of the collective West. His books cannot be bought on Amazon. They are banned. Dugin is very much feared and disliked, even hated. The killing of Darya has a great symbolic and political significance. Ukraine plays the role of imitating a political force. Ukraine is not the subject of a special operation. This is a war between the West and Russia. This is a war that the West has started, in fact, since the collapse of the USSR. Russian culture has been captured by Ukraine using soft power technologies owned by the US and UK and the collective West in general. When they started to bring down monuments or adopt laws on language in Ukraine, this is just a consequence of those processes. This is a war with the West. This is a terrorist act committed by the West. I'm convinced that this is not a purely Ukrainian initiative.
Well,
Okay. So a lot of Russians right now, and I'm just going to speak from what I've been seeing around here, consider this a complete escalation because of the information that has been developing has pointed to the SBU. And so the SBU, everything pointing to that, yes, but the reactions from Western media and also the way Dugin has been portrayed as being something that he isn't, as being a fascist, as being a Nazi, as being so influential when he really isn't. I mean, he got kicked out actually by the Kremlin for a while, like a while ago. He was not, he wasn't necessarily, his ideas weren't necessarily accepted by everybody because they were thought to be a little bit radical back then. And so for them to say that he is largely influential of Putin in every single article, it's a lie. And that has contributed to the hatred against him. And of course, by extension, the death of his daughter, because she was her own person. But people are cheering that she died because she was his daughter, because they call her a fascist too, with zero evidence. Zero. I invite somebody to show me evidence that this woman and this man are Nazis, because they're not. They're literally talking about Nazis. They're talking about other Nazis.
Fam, there's not a picture of Putin and fucking Dugin together. I mean, on top of things, every single thing they're saying is a lie. She's a fascist. She's a Nazi. He's the brain. He's far right. All this other everything they're saying, they have nothing to back it up. But they could just throw it out there because they control other forms of media. They suppress any story out there. I mean, Jesus, they took down RT for these reasons, so that information will be highly hidden. So they're going to continue to do this stuff, and then they'll distract us with the bullshit and the attacks and the smear jobs and the campaign and the blah, yada 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 yada. I mean, the thing that just drives me crazy, fam, is I keep thinking about who done it. Like, that is the thing that's like, all right, if you had to piece this together, if you're an investigator, where would you start? Now, I don't know enough about Russian culture or whatnot to see if this was an attack from the inside. But one thing is for sure is that the West has just gone right into their same playbook, the same smear tactic, the same lies, and trying to just push a narrative that is completely false.
Right. So I'm going to talk about that because Ukraine is claiming that Russia did this to themselves.
Of course they did.
And Russia, of course, is denying that, and they have unleashed several bits of reports that after their investigation. So this is what Andrei Krasnov said. He was the head of Russian Horizon social movements, and he told this to TASS Media that was her father's vehicle, that she was driving another car, but she took his car, and then he went a different way. And so they believed that both of them were the target, but there are indications to also show that she was actually the target. So Oz, if you want to play this video, this is very tragic here. This is Alexander pretty much returning to the scene where this incident where Net took his daughter's life is happening, right? And he's there. And I mean, aside from all the politics, this is a father who just lost his daughter. That's it. End of story. That doesn't seem to matter to a lot of people. Just even if you actually hated somebody or disagreed with their politics, I feel like I'm having flashbacks back to when Ashley Babbitt was murdered, and people were arguing with me that this was a good thing. That, a dead Nazi is a good Nazi. I'm like, sure, but she's not a Nazi. These Nazis are the ones that your country is giving weapons to. Those are the Nazis, the ones you're defending. And Vanessa Beeley put out this great tweet. According to Russian Voice of Mordora channel, Darya Dugin was investigating Bellingcat. Christo Grosev has also spoken about evidence from a Bellingcat whistleblower of infiltration of Moscow power circle. I hope for a full investigation of this horrific murder.
Damn.
So,
wow.
So Bellingcat, we know, is a piece of shit propaganda outlet promoted by the intelligence apparatus of the West. They've gone after everybody. They've gone after Vanessa. They've gone after Eva. They've gone after Grayson. They've gone after everybody. And they are basically always attacking any what they deem as pro-Russian or narrative that goes against NATO, essentially. And so they've been on the attack as of recently. But there was a statement made today by the FSB that they narrowed in on the culprit for the murder of Darya Dugina. And according to them, it looks like the SBU is behind it. There's this woman named Natalia Vov, which I think her other name is something Sahana or something.
Mm-hmm.
But this is basically the information they have, is that the SBU is behind the murder, that this woman was born in 1979. She arrived on Russia on July 23rd with her daughter, Sofia Shaban. So that's how their last name is Shaban. They rented an apartment in the house where Dugina lived in Moscow. So they rented an apartment in the same area where she lived, in the same literal vicinity. It must have been like, a place where you can have multiple rooms. She used a Mini Cooper to follow her, changed the license plate 3 times, used license plate from the DPR from Kazakhstan and Ukraine. So from Donbass. And on the day of the crime, she and her daughter came to the Tradition Festival. And after the remote control detonation on August 21st, they left for Estonia. So the materials of the investigation were apparently transferred to the investigative committee. So Russia doesn't put stuff out unless they have something. They've never done that. They're very careful about what they release. They don't tend to release half-assed information. So there's this picture of this woman, and that's her. And they found this within less than 48 hours, since this happened Saturday, right, in the middle of the night, because they rushed a correspondent at 4 a.m. that Saturday. So it's happened in the middle of the night. So now it's Monday. And so in less than 48 hours, they were able to figure this out. Now, how did this happen? With all the security Russia has, how the hell did this happen, right? So I just wanted to also read this statement also from her father, from Alexander, who said this. He said, "As you all know, my daughter Darya Dugina was brutally murdered before my eyes in an explosion on August 20th as a result of a terrorist attack carried out by the Nazi Ukrainian regime while returning from the Tradition Festival near Moscow. She was a beautiful Orthodox girl, a patriot, a war correspondent, an expert on Central TV channels, and a philosopher. Her speeches and reports were always profound, informed, and restrained. She never called for violence or war. She was a rising star in her early days. Russia's enemies killed her sneakily, underhandedly. But we, our people, cannot break even under these unbearable blows. They wanted to crush our will with bloody terror against the best and most vulnerable among us, but they will not succeed. Our hearts are not just hungry for revenge or retaliation. That would be too shallow, too shallow, not Russian. We only want our victory. My daughter laid her maiden life on its altar, so be victorious, please. We wanted to bring her up, a clever girl and a hero. May she inspire the sons of our motherland to heroism even now. Farewell to Darya Dugina, Platanova. Civil funeral service will be held on August 23rd at the Ostankino Television Center at 10 a.m. So that's tomorrow.
It's sad, and it really sucks that like everything's so politicized that we forget to even to realize that it's a woman like 30 years old. How old was she? 30 and change. I mean, she's a young woman over here, and I mean, regardless of her political views, the fact that people are cheering on her death, I mean, that is just a sad thing. And the fact that it's the SBU coming up now, fam. Hold my beer. Things can get worse. I mean, I mean, holy shit, the implications this is going to bring into play. Yeah,
that's what people don't understand. Like, this is, so I forgot in my, like, today was kind of crazy for me. Maria Zaharova basically had said that if there is traces of the SBU, that they will consider this an act of terrorism. And she's a Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokeswoman. And she basically said, the moment they find any trace of Ukraine, this is now a terror act committed by Ukraine. So once you violate that, you're violating international law. You're violating there's laws when you have war. So according to Russia, they violated this, right? And so, but anything Russia does will always be seen as negative. So whoever did this wants Russia to retaliate and do something. There are reports of people fleeing Kiev because they're afraid of this so-called retaliation Russia will have. That's the thing. It's kind of like what happened with China, right? They obviously at a much more ridiculous scale of killing a civilian, but it's almost like they're trying to do whatever they can to rile up Russians. And what they need to realize is neither Russians nor the Chinese are going to just be impulsive in their reactions. But this is really, from a lot of Russian people, this is just on another level. You're attacking civilians now. And when they defend themselves, they call them a Nazi and say, well, she deserved it because she and her father are Nazis. It's just ridiculous. Russia can do no right. And I want to play this video
really quick that people have to understand too is the SBU is completely trained by the West and its forces. The SBU, if it's linked to it, is pretty much been trained by Blackwater, and CIA operatives. I mean, there's no way to get around this. This is like a West-controlled, situation, and they're going to make this. They're going to draw these parallels. It's not going to go unchecked, unnoticed. Everybody in Russia probably knows who the SBU is by now, and this is not going to be good by any means. This is not going to be good.
I agree. This 100% on what you said. So the FSB, which is the Russian side, published this video of Natalia Volk, the suspect, right, who is suspected in killing Darya. They published the video when she entered Russia, when she went in the same house, and then when she left for Estonia. So they have all this information. Now, what good does it do? Well, now they're just looking for her. So yeah, just so you guys know, there's a video.
Oz, could you open the box more?
Так, открывайте капот, бардачок, все открывайте. Вещи выгружайте из багажника, столик освободился. Открывайте, двери все тоже должны быть открыты. Очередь одна для всех. Так, здесь сиденье тоже отодвиньте, пожалуйста.
Okay, so you guys can see that. So they have all this information, right? And them having this information just basically means like they're going to put it out there because they believe that this is the case, right? They're not going to put something out there without really knowing what's going on. So I'm just adding something because I wanted to read.
What's going to happen too is that they're going to twist these things. They're going to make it seem like, look at saying like this information, they had it way too fast. The Russians wanted to do this. They're just, taking advantage of the situation. This is the sentiment that's going to come out there. Like they're going to say the things. They had all this information right away. Like it's almost like the Lee Harvey Oswald thing. Like who the patsy was beforehand. They're taking advantage of the situation. What do we got over here? Fascist dying is a good thing, and I will always celebrate it. Eat a bag of dirty dicks. Who is that, fam?
So remember the guy that told you that you were like some white man or something when you were arguing about something? This is like this. I use this as an example because there's so many of them. There's so many of these people. So Lauren Southern, who I really don't like, and I don't agree with her politics. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant how I feel about her. But she said a whole lot of cowards celebrating the murder of Alexander Dugin's daughter tonight on Twitter. Pathetic. Showing your true colors, a lot of you. I agree with her. The truth is the truth, no matter where it comes from or who says it.
Yep.
It's that simple. Enough of your bullshit. I don't care if Lauren Southern said it. I agree with her. She's right. I don't care. Like Julian Assange did that and it pissed so many people off. But when he was like agreeing with some people on the right, he agreed with some people on the left. Guess what? Because the truth is, when you're guided by the truth, that's all that matters. These fucking people are accusing this woman and her father of being Nazis and fascists. And they're using that accusation to justify the fact that they're happy that she's dead.
Oh, I remember this dude, fam.
Yeah.
This dude is the one that's got mad at me for saying that I made a statement saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene was better than Bernie Sanders on the Ukraine situation. And he went back and forth with me.
She has
and
been.
buried his head. And then like a week later, she came out and denied the money to go into Ukraine when Bernie Sanders sent it there. Oh, yeah, I remember this guy. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. 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 But no, you can't say anything about Marjorie Taylor Greene or you're a fascist because Marjorie Taylor Greene is a fascist. And by the way, that's another thing that I'm getting irritated too, because it's like Ben Norton posted something like, you know, the squad, I have my disagreements with the squad, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is a fascist. Dude, they're both trash. Like, I don't care. And I can say, hey, this person's right on this person's right on that. Even as of recently, I said, I said, I'll say something about the squad if they do something right. But you know why there's more hatred for the squad? Because they pretend to be one of us. They pretend to be anti-imperialist. I never put any faith in Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's never said, I'm going to give you Medicare for all. I'm going to do this, this, and that. That's why. So you can't equate it and say, oh, if you in any way give credence to Marjorie Taylor Greene, then you've lost it. Or Tucker Carlson, they'll name the usual suspects and they'll call them white supremacists.
Yeah.
You know what an actual fascist is. You know that a paramilitary fascist, that's not Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't care how awful her views are. I don't on certain political things from the U.S. She is a right wing, just like she's like the AOC of the right. Like she's just there to stall this controversy. But guess what? On this situation with Ukraine, she's out left of the left. And there's nothing, you're not going to change my mind on that. She has. And I think it's genuine all the time? No, I don't think it's genuine all the time. But I will say it's okay when somebody does something right. And so this moron is part of the Ukrainian ministry of something. He's some sort of just one of these people that is part of the Ukrainian government. And he said Russian propaganda lives in a fictional world where woman and her 12-year-old child were assigned responsible for blowing up the car of propagandist Dugina. Surprisingly, they did not find the Estonian visa on the spot. Vipers in Russia special services started an intra-species fight. I mean, this is like propagandist, right? You have to, the girl was blown up, and you have to continue to say she's a propagandist, she's a Nazi, she's this, she's that. It's just,
and they're just repeating shit that's told to them, by the way. Yeah, they're just repeating shit that's told them. They don't think for themselves, fan. This is ridiculous. Looking at that kid's freaking tweeter you put up, like it's like, I will still condone like killing Nazis. Why is that a bad thing? I mean, hello. Like, you're just repeating shit that was said to you. You don't think for yourself whatsoever. I don't understand how people can't understand how this is a really bad thing. It's not a good thing for the United States. It's not something that should be celebrated. It could put us in more hotter waters. It can make the tensions even worse. You know what I'm saying? And like we said, there's a direct line from the SBU who's now been fingered to the United States and the West. This is not a good thing at all. And something like this was going to happen because these are the type of people we are funding in the Ukraine. People have to get that through their head. They're the worst of the worst.
So you had this from the Daily Beast, right?
Can I put my newspaper hat on, fam, or no?
Yeah.
Well, let's look at this one first. Then I'll go newspaper guy, because I know, newspaper guys like me, like Castro. Daughter of Putin propagandist killed in the car bombing outside of Moscow. And look at it. This is from the Daily Beast. Look how they word this. Ready? Here we go. The daughter of far-right Russian ideologue, commonly known as Putin's brain, commonly known as, this is all bullshit. This is commonly known in your fucking stupid Star Wars mind for his supposed influence over Russian president's fascist views, was killed in a car bombing outside of Moscow late Saturday, triggering outrage calls for revenge from pro-Kremlin figures who blame Ukraine for the blast. Russian investigative community confirmed that Darya Dugina, the daughter of Alexander Dugin, was killed in an explosive device planted underneath the bottom of the car detonated as she was driving. The committee described the explosion as a targeted hit and had been planned in advance, though they did not say it believed that Dugina herself had been the target. So implying, of course, that it's her father's the target. But look at that first sentence, fam. The daughter of far-right Russian ideologue, commonly known as Putin brain, lie, 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 lie. And that's why you get these idiots out there repeating this stuff like it's okay that she was killed.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
And the worst part is that they repeat it, but they're supposed to be opposing. I mean, they call themselves communists, socialists. They call themselves this and that. And I firmly believe, which is why my tweet today, that there's a lot of controlled opposition. There's a lot of brainwashed people, but there's a lot of the intelligence apparatus that's completely just infested the left, the synthetic left now. It's the synthetic left now, but they've infested every facet, every organization. They've either taken down or corrupted. That's just what's happened here. There is no left in the United States.
They just live to smear us. They exist to push back at anybody who's anti-imperialist, anybody who's freaking a dissenting voice, anybody who's willing to question power. The left, this little synthetic left has got in line. And like you said, it's a synthetic left. And really quick before you read the statement, fam, because I'm just going to read the first two paragraphs. As you know, everybody, not only am I a civil liberties guy who's 61% Southern Italian, I'm also a newspaper guy on the side, fam, like many other noble men. Castro, played by James Franco. This blast kills kin of Putin ally, prominent Russian possible intended target of car bombing. Now, listen to the first couple paragraphs, and that's all I'm going to read because it's almost like they get the same friggin' email. And this is from the Associated Press. The daughter, and this is Moscow, the daughter of an influential Russian political theorist, often referred to as Putin's brain, was killed in a car bombing on the outskirts of Moscow, authorities said on Sunday. The Moscow branch of the Russian investigative community said blah, blah, blah. The same thing going into the daughter. But the first bullshit is right there. Putin's brain. Yeah. This is you know what I'm saying? They're trying to justify the killing of this person.
Yep.
You have a couple tweets here from Sloboda, right?
Yeah, I had to read Mark's stuff because this is important that people understand that literally everything that's being said about these people is a lie. Everything. There is not one single thing that is being pushed by these morons that we just put on the screen or by the Western media at all. That's true. So this is from Mark Sloboda, who's lived here for years now, right? The attempted assassination of Dugin, which instead resulted in the killing of his daughter, was part of the increasingly demented propaganda and info war of a desperate and crumbling U.S. proxy putsch regime in Kiev in lieu of success on the battlefield, of which it is incapable. The killing of Putin's brain, quote, Putin's brain, who inspired the Russian intervention in the Ukrainian civil conflict, would be celebrated by Kiev regime propagandists as a victory. It does not matter in the slightest that none of it is true. It doesn't matter that in reality, Dugin has never met or spoken to Putin. It doesn't matter that his unique ideas had zero influence in the Kremlin and little to none in the rest of Russian society. It doesn't matter that, to the contrary, the Kremlin got Dugin fired from Moscow State University and banned him from government media because of his strident views on the putsch in Ukraine at a time when the Kremlin was pushing the Minsk Accords to resolve the civil conflict there. The truth doesn't matter because Dugin has been blown up as a caricature boogeyman in the minds of the West and pushed controlled Ukraine. And his assassination would thus still serve as a propaganda victory, in spite of its complete divorce from reality. In this, the Western media, which caricatured and inflated Dugin, and the Western governments, which nonsensically sanctioned him, are fully complicit in the murder of Darya Dugina. So there you go, guys. I mean, I couldn't have summarized it better myself. He really said it all. I invite these people to show me evidence that either Alexander or his daughter are Nazis. Please, I would really like to see some evidence that they are, because from what I've seen, from what I've researched, that is a complete and total fabrication. And even if it were true, which it is not, and like I said, I invite anybody to bring me evidence, even if that were true, celebrating the death of somebody with such joy. I mean, I just have such a hard time. And like, even people that deserve it, we talk about war criminals. There is a video going around about her, with Darya in it, where she is supposedly celebrating, saying that she's happy, or she wants to go after these Ukrainians, but she was talking about war criminals. She was talking about what was happening in the Donbass. She was talking about the murder, and that these people need to be tried in a tribunal. She was talking about the war criminals. She wasn't talking about a Ukrainian citizen. And I have in my time here in Moscow seen any Russian say, I want to destroy Ukrainians and Ukraine. They have family in Ukraine. They have friends in Ukraine. They see Ukraine as a sister country. So for people to come and paint this picture, like people who support Putin and who support what Putin did, and see it as a defense of Russia in the Donbass and standing up to NATO, them being the equivalent of fascists, it's not only wrong, it's ignorant, it's stupid, it's completely devoid of reality, as Mark said.
Fam, it could get really, really bad. People got to watch on out. Let's read some super rays. What do you say?
Yep.
Are we having our guest come on soon?
Should be.
All right, Jenny, let's tip the jar. Who's with me? Who's with Jenny? I'm coming with you, Jenny. Who's coming with me, man? Rat Links and Marmalade, thank you for the super ray contribution. As always, appreciated on the couch. And we also have AREM. Thank you so much for that super ray contribution, AREM. We love you. You're always hanging out on whatever show we got going on. And we appreciate that. The term fascist has lost all its meaning from overuse. No shit, because they use it for everything. It's just become that. But really, to tell you the truth, these people are exposing themselves as some of the dumbest people out there right now. I mean, really, this ain't about education. This is just completely about character and wanting to be part of a group so that you just repeat those words and stuff because you want to be in with the in crowd. These are really narcissistic people who say this shit. Really, they hate themselves and they hate everybody else because they hate themselves.
Yeah, but it's also dangerous because what I've been seeing, and I think I'm going to allude to this tomorrow with the whole Caleb situation, is that these people have infiltrated, this mindset has infiltrated every facet of any attempt to organize the quote unquote left in the United States. We talk about it with our friends all the time. It's just it's done. There's no solutions coming from any sort of anti-establishment, really substantial substantial population in the United States. It's just not. I mean, it's just a few people, right? And they get in their own way. They've turned the left against each other, and they've used their virtues against them. They use this virtue of supposed to be, fighting for sovereignty, fighting for justice, and just completely just deformed it into something that it isn't, into really hating like Russia, into really vilifying everybody and regurgitating, at the end of the day, regurgitating what their enemy they're supposed to fight against says. And they say the same thing. There's no difference between the NATO neoliberals and these people. They're working on the same team.
Yeah.
They just every now and then they're like, oh, no, we're not. But essentially they're working on the same team. And so I've lost any hope in the United States kind of coming back and doing anything, because they don't have any organization, and even independent media in the US, besides a handful, focus on the wrong thing. They're focused on the wrong things. And really there's a hierarchical structure that's replicating the same type of structure in establishment media, the same thing. And it really, you can't replicate the same thing with different people, because then it's still the same thing. And you have to be better than that. You have to be different than that. And I just don't see a way out. And it's not me being pessimistic, it's me being realistic. I'm actually quite optimistic most of the time. But lately, I've been just seeing what's become of whatever's left over there is just, yeah, it's bad. So, all right, our guest is here. So I'm going to introduce him in a second, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of talk a little bit about what's been going on in Panama. Basically, just Richard Morales has been he's a political economist, and he's going to give us a little bit of a breakdown as to what's been going on in protest in Panama, because there's a lot of, we met some Panamanians when we went to Nicaragua, and we spoke to some of them about their fight and how the U.S. has been hugely occupying a lot of the functioning of politics, the economics of the country. So I want to hear more about Richard and what he has witnessed in recent months with what's been going on. Richard, welcome.
Hi, Fiorella. Good afternoon. Hi to everybody who's connecting with us today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad we got you on this time. Can you just give us a breakdown, right, as to what led to the high cost of living in Panama and to the subsequent protests that ensued after, and where we're at right now in terms of that?
No, it's important to place the protest into context. Panama is a dollarized economy, so goods and services tend to be more expensive in Panama than in neighboring countries. It is a country where the United States has had an important geopolitical position historically. They not only, before they built the canal from 1903 to 1914, they played a role in the separation of Panama from Colombia. But even before that, in the middle of the 19th century, when Panama had the first inter-American railroad system that was built by the United States, and they had permission from that time to intervene in Panama's internal affairs to maintain order. So Panama has been an integral part of the United States imperialist expansion, if one wants to put it in those terms, where it has been a key place that it has used to mobilize militarily in the region. And from the construction of the Panama Canal on, it has been an important for both its commercial and military activity. In 1999, the canal and the land that the United States occupied in Panama, which was the land around the canal, connecting the city in the Pacific, which is Panama, and the city in the Atlantic, which is Colón, the two terminal cities of the canal. The U.S. had control of that region. Panama managed to recuperate control of both the canal and the land. So it was an important historical victory for Panamanians to have evicted the United States from its country and to achieve full control of its territory. But even though that was and that was the achievement of popular movements throughout many decades, even though that was achieved, the United States has maintained an important geopolitical foothold in Panama. They have intervened informally in our electoral processes, favoring certain candidates over another, and they have had an increased military presence in Panama as well. So Panamanian and U.S. relations are historically very, very conflicted. We were invaded in 1989 by the United States under the pretext of removing Manuel Antonio Noriega, but Noriega had been before that CIA operative. So even that was done in the removal of the dictator Noriega, was the removal of a figure that had been subservient to the United States before that. So where is Panama now after this very conflicted history with the United States and on its own? After Panama recuperated the canal, there was an idea that this would serve to promote some sort of shared prosperity, where the promise of that prosperity would be achieved once we had the canal in our hands. But that hasn't been the case. Both the riches generated by Panama's geographic position, its canal, its port system has been concentrated in the hands of the few. So Panama is a highly unequal country. It is probably but it is the second most unequal country in Latin America behind Colombia. And it is a country that is different from the rest of Latin America in that it does not depend on either the exportation of agricultural commodities or petroleum or gas or natural or minerals, but on the exploitation of its geographic position, both for transport with the canal, with the port system, but also for commerce and banking. And it has created a sort of services hub where it attracts capital from around the world so that it can move it within its financial center, offshore financial center, and channel some of that into speculative use with land and housing. So it has a very different model from the rest of Latin America, but one that shares the high inequality. So what happened in recent weeks and months, the interior of the country, what one could call the western part of the country that is near the border with Costa Rica, went into mass protest. And this was highly unusual because most protests in Panama tend to be in the metropolitan area around the canal between Panama and Colón cities, which are the terminal cities of the canal, as I mentioned before. So you had uprisings basically in the interior of the country, the more rural parts, which had been historically marginalized since most public investment and most economic activity takes place in that metropolitan area. So you had first teacher strikes, then you had El Pueblo Nobe, indigenous peoples joining in on those strikes. Then you had different agricultural workers, transport workers, construction workers, and then also the metropolitan area joined in on those strikes. So what began as a protest interrupting or closing off the Inter-American Highway, which is the highway that connects all of the Americas up to Darien, which is in the eastern part of Panama that connects it with Colombia, where the Inter-American Highway is interrupted by the jungle. So basically, you had these huge protests that began in the historically marginalized interior of the country that basically had a series of basic demands. There were to control and reduce the price of oil, to reduce the price of food, to reduce the price of energy, and to reduce the price of medicines. So in all these sectors in Panama, even though in gas, for example, it's clear that there's an international factor there. All these sectors in Panama, food importation. Panama is a country that does not produce much of its food. Most of it is imported. Food, medicine is in the hand of huge oligopolies, which basically monopolize importation and commerce within the country. And you get much higher medicine prices, sometimes beyond even 1,000% higher in the cost of medicines than in neighboring countries. So these massive protests were mainly due to worsening economic conditions of most of the Panamanians, and they quickly grew in size, especially when the government gave a very, very inadequate answer. They were basically trying to ignore the protests or trying to manipulate the protest and divide them, and that just made people's anger keep increasing. And finally, all of this has led to a negotiations table between the popular movements and the government.
Richard, thank you so much. Everybody here joining the Convo Couch today, do us a favor. Please hit the like button. Please hit the share button. We're here with Richard Morales. He's in Panama. Richard, hi. This is Craig from the Convo Couch. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Craig. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, it's our pleasure. I want to know if this uprising has anything to do with what's going on in the region. We first saw, obviously, Commandant Ortega re-win his election over in Nicaragua, followed by Xiomara Castro, followed by Petro in Colombia, and then even people can point back to Gabriel Boric in Chile. So are the people of Panama seeing what's happening around them, seeing this pink movement and thinking to themselves, hey, it's time for us to seize this opportunity? Because even though it's a smaller country, the significance in the geopolitics and the fact that the West controls all the maritime travel and shipping in through Panama and through the Panama Canal, is this a moment where the people of Panama are saying, hey, let's seize the moment because what we see around us?
there is a part of this that does have to do with what is going on with the region, with the people looking at the different left-leaning governments winning around in Latin America. But I would say more than it being an example of emulation where we emulate what other countries are doing, I would say we are responding to the same factors which made those countries also erupt into mass protest and elect popular leaders. For example, Colombia had the mass protest in 2019. Chile did as well. That led to an accumulation of forces that allowed both Petro and Boric to use the two most recent electoral examples to win their elections. And these are all countries that have suffered that. Well, in the case of both Chile and Colombia, they have the unique circumstances that those were two of the only governments where the left had been unable to win up to that point. The other one would be Panama, and these have been governments that have suffered or countries that had suffered along the rest of the region the effects of neoliberal policies from the 80s, 90s, and so on. So while many other countries in the region had already had anti-neoliberal governments, which I think could be one way to define in a coherent way all of these different governments in Latin America. Both Chile had not, and Colombia definitely had not. So finally, we get left-leaning governments in both countries. And Panama, which had in a certain, which has as one could say a singular, has been the singular exception in the region. We have never had a left-leaning or progressive government of any kind in our history. That could have to do with many factors. One of those is definitely U.S. presence in the country. So a lot of people were caught off guard by these protests. And the fact that they have been led by the social and popular movements, whom are the ones that are sitting right now on the negotiations table with the government. So I would say these are mostly anti-neoliberal protests. We are protesting for the very same reasons that other countries had protested in the recent past. Just to put one example, part of the protests have to do with the cost of electricity. Panama had an electricity reform or privatization in the middle of the 90s. So we also pay a very high price for our energy, despite abundant and cheap hydroelectric energy being available in our country.
So you're saying that these protesters, some of these leaders, are sitting down at the table with the government. What are their demands, and have they? How is that going? Do you think they're going to get some of what they want? And if they don't, do you see the protests continuing in some form?
It is very likely that the protest will continue in some form or another in the short or medium term. The social movements, which are composed of three different coalitions, mostly of different unions, peasant groups, indigenous groups, teachers groups, youth student groups, who are the ones on the table right now negotiating with the government in a publicly transmitted negotiations table. So this has been an important victory as well. The fact that the table and the negotiations between the government and the popular movement's leaders is being transmitted on live television on the country's public network. So there have been a series of achievements. The government has acceded to subsidize the price of fuel, to control the prices of more than 70 food products. They have also established certain a reduction in the price of certain medicines, and they have created a joint commission or truth commission to investigate acts of corruption in the present and in past governments, as well as they have agreed to fulfill the compromise of investing 6% of GDP in education. We have a law that imposes that it should be 6%, but no government has ever complied with it. But one has to also be critical of what is going on. This is a government that together with the main capital or the most powerful capitalist factions in Panama has been sabotaging the accords. So we know that that even though the government has formally or nominally agreed to these demands, that they will do everything in their power to make them fail, and that the only true way to make these demands be fulfilled by the government, and that we can start to attend the root or the systemic causes of these problems is with a popular government, left-leaning government reaching power. If we have to depend on a bourgeois government basically trying to fulfill these demands, we know that they will continue to sabotage them in any way possible, as they have been doing so far. The government is basically playing for time, so they have also been trying to extend the length or the time that the table has been discussing. But it has been a very important victory. There has been growing consciousness within the Panamanian people of the fact that we have these huge capitalist monopolies who have exceptional profits that they speculate with the prices of foodstuff. The fact that there is a growing consciousness in the Panamanian people that we have a problem in our economic model, that was something that was non-existent before these protests. So one could say this is a very important inflection point in Panamanian history.
I would say so. I mean, because the way I'm thinking about this whole situation, Richard, is the fact that in 1989, when American troops, people don't understand this, like when they removed Noriega, American troops hit Panama by air, by sea. They hit it hard with the kind of climate we see going on there right now. Because I know a lot of, in the West, they portrayed Noriega as a drug trafficker who was killing American citizens. That's why we had to go get him. But I think a lot of people in Panama understand that it was the fact his relationship with the CIA had gone sour, and that's why the American troops hit Panama. In this particular type of political climate, with all the people of Panama who are now kind of getting more conscious of what's going on, is it possible that we see that the Americans can do something like this again to get Panama back under their control if there's a mad uprising? Or is this a little bit more like, hey, it's a different time right now, and the Panamanian people are not going to take American troops again thrusting themselves into Panama's politics?
These are very tense times in Panama. There have been recent news stories in Fox News with the Southern Command leadership speaking of China's growing presence in Panama, sort of beginning to try to create public opinion, apparently in the United States, but also in Panama, to justify a growing military presence in the country. Some of the leaders of political parties here in Panama have started to utilize this anti-China discourse to justify a more permanent more permanent military United States presence here. Ever since the invasion, when the United States invaded in 1989, and effectively, you are correct, they used the drug trafficking as a sort of pretext. The relationship with the U.S. had gone sour. They realized that Noriega was not as subservient to them as they thought, that he also had his own political objectives, or his own, he thought he had a higher margin of a higher liberty to move around the region and to open and to talk with other governments. And also, he had been incapable of implementing the neoliberal reforms the United States and the World Bank was asking of Panama. So he became an uncomfortable ally, or an undependable ally. So they needed friendly governments to be able to handle the transfer of the canal to Panamanians, which is what they got, basically. Different oligarchical governments alternating themselves in power from the 90s onward. So, and could this repeat itself effectively? In the early 90s, Panama signed a series of security accords with the United States that allowed for growing U.S. military presence in the country. They can't be permanently in the country, supposedly, due to the Torrijos-Carter Accord, which is the accord that Jimmy Carter and Omar Torrijos signed, that basically devolved the canal back to Panamanians and the land, and called for the removal of all military bases in the country. But their military presence has been growing. They have been using for many years now the excuse or the pretext of growing drug activity in Colombia. So there had been some sort of bilateral military cooperation going on between Colombia and Panama, but basically all of that being coordinated by the U.S. Now with Petro's government, there is also growing fears that since the U.S. has lost its foothold in Colombia, that it will reinforce its presence in Panama, that I will use Panama as a sort of military hub to move around. So we see the discourse. We see it in the media in the United States. It's probably marginal at this point still in the United States, but the fact that there has been some mention of the supposed Chinese threat to Panama makes it clear that they are preparing to keep increasing their presence here and probably to pressure our internal politics. Just 10 years ago, just to use a quick example, when President Martinelli won in 2009, that was a very right-wing government. He actually signed an agreement with one of the other political candidates in that election, Varela. They signed their agreement to go in alliance in the election within the U.S. Embassy. So the U.S. Embassy has been influencing politics in Panama for many years now. And given the instability in the country, if we go back in our own history, whenever there is instability in Panama, which creates instability for the Panama Canal and the U.S. military and commercial interest, that has usually led to some sort of military intervention in our internal politics. So we would hope that this growing consciousness that the Panamanian people have acquired through these mass protests will give us the strength to resist any U.S. intervention in the country.
And my last question is: has Panama reached out to its neighboring countries? Is there talks like within groups to talk about oppositional groups, obviously, to the current government, to reach out to Nicaragua, Honduras, and other Latin American countries? Because what we're seeing right now, as Pasta mentioned earlier on, was this sort of pink tide, this shift towards a multipolar world, right? Because what the United States has lost its hold on Colombia, it's losing its hold in a lot of countries, also in the global south, in Africa, for example. They are dealing with China more. They're opening up to Russia. They don't feel like a trust or a need to the United States. In fact, they have said they have more reliance on BRICS countries now than on the United States. So the United States is obviously afraid of this. We saw Ted Cruz go on a rant against socialism recently, talking about Petro. We saw another Biden top advisor say that 40 years ago, we would have stopped the election of Gustavo Petro. Petro's win in a country that was so full of neoliberalism and such is full of U.S. control, really, I think, is doing a number on the United States. And it seems like they're afraid because, again, Colombia has opened up conversations with Cuba. Colombia has opened up conversations with Venezuela and brought, Petro, the first thing he did was bring the Espada de Bolivar back into the forefront. So what we're seeing here is a shift. Do you think that shift may signify that there might be more of a conversation between those that want to reestablish Panamanian sovereignty away from the U.S. involvement? Do you see that movement building towards perhaps a coming election?
I think there's a growing recognition in Panama within both the popular movement and even within certain parts of the Panamanian capitalist class that it's important to break away from U.S. hegemony within Panama. Evidently, the reasons that the working class and the popular movements have for these are different from the ones of those certain fractions of the bourgeois, but they do it because the reason you mentioned, we are in a growing we are passing from unipolar to a multipolar world, and Panama is a country that depends on transport, that depends on commerce, depends on banking. China is its second biggest trading partner, one of the second biggest user of the Panama Canal, and both its port system, its commercial hubs. So it's in Panama's self-interest, if you want to look at it this way,
Right.
simply to be able to extend these relationships with as many countries as possible. And then it's clear that U.S. investment in Panama has not been growing. It has there is no clear economic reason for the country, for whatever political party or government of whatever orientation, to want to favor this exclusive relationship with the U.S. Those geopolitical tensions only hurt Panama. If you want to look at it historically, even now that you mentioned La Espada de Bolívar in Colombia, Panama is the country that Simón Bolívar had chosen to be the capital of this integrated, united Latin America. So we have this very rich Bolivarian tradition of a country that wants to play a bigger role in uniting Latin America, in promoting peace and mutual development, in opening ties and bridges to other continents, countries around the world. So some governments in Panama have tried to dip into this rich Bolivarian tradition, but the current government has shown itself to be extremely subservient and weak towards against U.S. pressure. So many infrastructure projects, for example, that Panama had with China. Panama established diplomatic relations with China in 2016, so very recently. But many of those infrastructure projects were put on hold or canceled outright once this government got to power. So even though Panama should, either for historical reasons, for political reasons, or economic reasons, be favoring these the more diversified ties with the rest of the world, less dependency on the United States. The United States seems to be pushing Panama in a different direction, and our elite seems to be way too weak, or historically it has been a very weak elite, especially when it comes to U.S. pressure. And one factor that adds to that is when our dominant class has faced popular pressure, mass protests, they usually have looked towards the military and the U.S. as their escape route, as the sort of the one that is going to save them from the mass protests, from popular governments, and so on. The Panamanian history is very repetitive in that sense. Whenever there seems to be an accumulation of forces where some sort of popular or progressive or left-leaning government seems almost imminent, that is when the military or the U.S. directly intervenes to not allow that to happen. But in favor of being a bit more optimistic about this, we are in there's a very different correlation of forces in Latin America right now with Colombia, Lula's imminent victory in Brazil, Obrador in Mexico, Nicaragua, Ortega, with Venezuela, Maduro, Argentina, Fernandez. It is a Latin America that is clearly anti-neoliberal and has very clear and it has very clear that it needs a higher degree of independence, especially from Latin America, from the United States. And Petro has said it as part of his political project. It is Latin American integration, and Latin American integration is in the interest of all our countries and Panama. So I would hope that this different correlation of forces and weakening U.S. power in the world will allow our country to position itself on the right side of history, to put it on a certain sense. The right side in this case is the left side. But there do seem to be conditions in Panama, even though I want to point this out again. We are probably the only country in Latin America that has never had any sort of left-leaning or progressive government of any kind. But if there is a moment to break that and to make history, it is probably within the next few years.
When is the next elections, Richard? And who do we look out from the left that's going to take a stand for the people of Panama for some real representation? Because when we talk about left, everything you've talked about is the economics that are so important here in Panama, throwing all these oligarchs out and all these predators out because they're infested in Panama. So when is the next election, and who are we looking for to step up to the plate?
Well, it's in 2024, so it's very near. And the left currently doesn't have any officially recognized parties or legally recognized political parties, but there is a candidate that is currently looking for signatures for the president with the presidency, which is Maribel Gordon. She is in the negotiations table with the government. She is an economist, and she belonged to the Frente Amplio por la Democracia. It's a political party that I also belonged to in the past. It's currently not recognized legally, but so she would be looking for signatures to run independently. We have our electoral system is it's very close, so it's very difficult to form political parties and for political parties to survive, and that design is intentional. But she would be one of the candidates. She would be the only candidate that for the presidency that would be that would represent those social transformations. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say so we could be looking at her candidacy. She still has to compete with a big number of people who are also looking for signatures, and they only allow a certain amount of those candidates. And the oligarchy also has its own candidates that it's sort of running as independents. She would basically be running as an independent. I'm running as an independent for the National Assembly, in absence of a party at this moment that we can run under. And there are also other compañeros who are also running for different posts. So the left would be participating in these elections in the absence of the party as independents. But after this election, probably towards 2029, which would be the other election, the left could probably be a lot stronger, and probably be in a position to win government. But we shouldn't exclude the possibility that in this election we might have a possibility of winning.
It's interesting because we travel all over Latin America to witness elections. We'll be in Brazil as well. And I was just curious about the election process, about how that is, because not every country has equal elections. I mean, some countries have better systems than others, right? So it's interesting that you say that it's harder to find to belong to a different alternative party, because that's how it is in the United States. We basically just have a two-party system, which is basically a one-party system. But it'd be interesting as time nears to learn more about, the elections and how they're conducted and all of that, because, we've been to Nicaragua, Honduras, and other places. So we find that interesting. So Richard, thank you very much for coming on and for sharing this with us. Very valuable information. Not enough is talked about Panama. Historically, there's so many ties to the U.S. So where can we find more about you? And just let us know where we can find you, where people can find your work, and about your candidacy, perhaps.
Yeah, and Richard, please come back on again and keep us updated on what's going on. We want to keep this in the forefront over here and make sure that people are understanding what's going on in Panama as it happens and as it unfolds, because Panama is one of those countries with the Panama Canal. United States does not want to give it up whatsoever. So we might see some serious pushback. So please let us know everything.
Will do. Yes, Panama is a very small country, but geopolitically very important to U.S. empire. So we could be looking towards very tense times in the region and in Panama in the recent future. And thank you very much for the invitation. If anybody wants to look up some more information on me or what's going on in Panama, they can look me up in Twitter. It's Richard Morales Richard _Morales. And they could from there go to the different sites that I work with or work on. And yeah, it would be my pleasure to in the future to come on again and talk more about Panama's political process and about what's going on in the country. We are still in the middle of the conjuncture. The table is still negotiating as we speak. So and the indigenous peoples, the coalition of indigenous peoples, have already threatened to leave the table if the government isn't more firm in making sure the price controls are enforced on foodstuffs. So this is an ongoing process as we speak.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. And hopefully we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Fam, that was
so.
awesome.
Yes, everybody, check out Richard_Morales on Twitter. Make sure to take a look at his Twitter. You know, it's crazy because when we were in Nicaragua and we met some of the Panamanians, they were some of the most just revolutionary types. They held the meeting outside and they were talking and they were very passionate. And there's several singers that are from Panama that I've really liked in the past. So I just it's really great. And I would love to see the elections, fam, how the elections are over there. Because
so would I.
Yeah, I would be very interested because, I'm sure in the U.S. it's a little, because of the U.S. strength in it, it's a little bit different.
All right, fam, let's get to it.
All right. See you guys
Bye,
later.
Richard.
Bye, Richard.
Bye. Bye.
All right, let's get to it. Just got to hit leave. All you have to do is hit leave and it will let you go right on out. There it is. Perfect. So, fam, I don't know if you know about this, but Katie Porter is the new darling of the left as she's pushing state propaganda. And she's been coming on hardcore, fam. First of all, as you can see in that picture over here with Katie Porter, we're going to show what she's going on. The thing that's the really pissed me off thing is not the fact that she stole that whiteboard from my refrigerator, but she used it to write down BS about what the IRS is trying to do. This is a complete fucking dupe. What the IRS is doing, they're arming the IRS to the T. They are hiring so many more agents not to go after the rich, and that's why she's completely lying here, but to go after you, us, the poor. Let's take a look at what Katie Porter had to say over here. This really boils my blood. Do you need some more time, honey? All right. Guys, thank you for joining in today. Do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button. Go ahead and
just call Oz honey.
Yes. Let's roll it. Here we are. Katie Porter. That's good.
The reality is the focus of the bill on the audit piece is on big corporations. It's on cracking down on corporate tax cheats. And here's how that math works. For every dollar that we invest in IRS enforcement of the most wealthy Americans and the largest corporations with an army of lawyers and accountants to do their bidding, we can recover $5 in taxes that are owed to the rest of us. And ultimately, this kind of investment is going to let us have a more stable tax structure going forward. The reality is that...
Fam, with an army of lawyers and whatnot, we're going after the rich. That's why we've hired 87,000 with the stroke of a pen in this bill. 87,000 new employees, making it bigger than any other bureaucracy we have, and sitting on a ton of weapons. But that's, fam, just to go after the rich. And let me just show you how facetious they are, fam. Here's what Facebook is doing. Facebook is now fact-checking censors factually claim the IRS is arming agents to use deadly force. They're literally taking down people who were putting up posts showing what the IRS did. So here, let me just read it really quick. Facebook has deployed one of its infamous fact-checkers, which we understand is not really fact. They're just strong opinions. We know that from the lawsuit, to suggest that they are completely accurate claim that the IRS is seeking to arm more agents to use deadly force was partially false information. Earlier this month, the IRS job posting was uncovered that announced the agency was looking to hire people who are ready to kill. The job ad listed as one of the major duties of the IRS agents is to be able to carry a firearm and willing to use deadly force if necessary. Fam, it is right there. It says it. This is the post from the IRS. Carry a firearm and willing to use deadly force if necessary, fam. So
it's fake news. It's a figment of your imagination, you conspiracy theorists. You know, somebody used that argument against me when I talked about that.
what did they say?
You're lying. Fact checker said. It's.
I know. People can't think for themselves. They just repeat shit. They do no work. All this information is out there. I'm a 49-year-old fucking guy who didn't have a computer in my school, and I can do better research than you. Or I just choose to because all you want is your confirmation bias. Listen to the last part.
Because he used a Dewey Decimal System, guys. That shit was hard.
I did. I wrote cursive in school. The IRS, and I never used it. The IRS subsequently deleted one of the job postings after its Stoke controversy. But then a 2021 IRS annual report also came to light, which showed heavily armed agents simulating an assault on a suburban home as part of their training. Fam, they're going to a suburban. Katie Porter, they're going to a suburban home to go after the rich. When the Heritage Foundation and Young Americans for Liberty posted about the issue on Facebook, the big tech giant, relying on a fact check carried out by Lead Stories, slapped a warning label on the post that said they constituted partially false information.
Guys, we allowed it.
Sorry, go ahead.
We allowed it. No, I was going to say we allowed it for the 2016 primary. Labeling Russia, things of Russians, blah, blah, blah. Then it was the 2020 election. Then it was Hunter Biden's laptop, January 6th, COVID, Russia, Ukraine, now China. They're going to, do you not see the moment you allow them to expand their censorship and their surveillance powers, you're never going to get that back. You're never going to get that back. Not under this government. You're not going to get it back.
No way.
So they can literally, it's just the same thing with COVID. They literally said, for example, they said that the vaccines, this is according to the CDC, the vaccines do not stop transmission. But if somebody said that and posted it on Twitter, they would get their account taken down. Oh, but the CDC said, oh, no, it doesn't matter. Oh, but according to the study, oh, no, it doesn't matter. It's like they're denying reality. And these morons, when we point it out, they're like, you're conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer, fascist, blah, 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 blah. Like, but I'm showing you evidence. Where's your evidence? They don't have it. They just have to character assassinate whoever says the truth.
Here's the rest of that article.
You're a libertarian.
Stop. Fact checks have the, did you guys know I'm a civil liberties guy? Fact checks have the effect of basically blacklisting content on Facebook, burying it in the algorithm and preventing large numbers of people from viewing the content. Oh, we know what that's like. Fact check. IRS is not trying to arm all of its agent fam, shouted the headline of the article by Lead Stories. So they push the information they want and they suppress the information they don't want. So we pulled this off the Ron Paul forums because, you know, fam, as a civil liberties guy, let's go to the civil
libertarian.
Let's go to the civil liberties people if we're going to go to the civil liberties guys, right? So this is like weaponizing the bureaucracy. Who will protect us from the government standing army? Now listen to this. We read this on the morning show. This is just crazy. A standing military force with an overgrown executive will not long be safe companions to liberty, says James Madison. The IRS has stockpiled, listen to this, 4,500 guns and 5 million rounds of ammunition in recent years, including 621 shotguns, 539 long barrel rifles, and 15 submachine guns. The Veterans Administration purchased 11 million rounds of ammunition, equivalent to 2,800 rounds for each of their officers, along with camouflage uniforms, riot helmets and shields, specialized image enhancement devices, and tactical lightning. The Department of Health and Human Services acquired 4 million rounds of ammunition in addition to 1,300 guns, including 5 submachine guns and 189 automatic firearms for its Office of Inspector General. According to the in-depth report, the militarization of the U.S. executive agencies, the Social Security Administration secured 800,000 rounds of ammunition for their special agents, as well as armor and guns. The EPA owns 600 guns, and the Smithsonian now employs 620 armed special agents. This is how it begins. Fam, they're arming all these agencies to the T.
They're just going to protect you.
Bullshit. I mean, 5 million rounds of ammunition the IRS is stockpiled. They got 621 shotguns, fam.
Why do you have to be so negative? The government has never lied to you, have they?
Do people really think they're going to come storming in on rich people with all this stuff, fam? Are they really that naive? Are they that stupid? They are coming after us.
Joe Biden is a communist.
Fam, no, he's far from a communist. This is ridiculous. The Department of Health and Human Services, the HHS, what are the people who enforce all the COVID policies? This is just, oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, this is ridiculous. And then you have all these politicians, and the one we're highlighting today, because we've had a little experience with the darling Katie Porter as she was doing unethical things to make sure that her delegates got in place inside her district so she can get all the money and funding and squash any grassroots movement. That was Katie Porter, okay? The one who really, what's the word, warmed AOC and held her when AOC was scared that she would never have a baby when she was facing near death in the January 6th riots, fam.
Hey,
that's Katie Porter.
We
Remember
go way
her?
back. Pasta and her go way back when she ran away from Pasta. Like literally, we have the video. You know, it's crazy how we call these people out. I mean, we did call her out like right away.
A long time ago.
She did not. We told people were like, you're Katie Porter. No, guys, here you go. There it is, right again. Sorry. She's just would pull out her little board and go after Republicans and do her little Republican act, and then that's it. And then people were like, "Oh, she's so great! Oh my God!" Well, there she is. Here she is now, fam.
Yeah, fam. I don't know. I want to go look in this act. Maybe I should call Shadow Ban Refugee or Paulie if he went through it, because I know that they're trying to tout that this particular bill allows them to negotiate drug prices and whatnot with the pharmaceutical companies. The truth of the matter is, before the bill got hit really hard, there were 20 drugs on that bill, and I think it might even got reduced. So I have to see how many bills are on it.
Yeah, I think so.
And I'll guarantee if insulin ain't on it, fam, I'll bet that insulin
might be 7.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But Katie Porter, and what it does is it pretty much puts more money into a Frankenstein like the Affordable Care Act. Right. You know what I'm saying? Once again, a failed policy. And guys, I didn't follow this part up. I followed the part up with the IRS because it's very new. But you guys know what a failed policy Obamacare is. But here she is. And I think this was like Al, what's his name? Dickface from Minnesota, filling in for Bill Maher on his show. I'm not sure what show it is, but take a look at this.
You're French.
Please. I know, fam. She's trying to really hype this crap.
Orange County is going to feel like Las Vegas, and that would be the end of the world for people in Orange County. We're soft people.
What?
And there's also
Watch
talk
how
about
leads.
some of the other parts, like Medicare being able to negotiate on pharmaceuticals.
This is going to save not just seniors money on their drugs, but it's going to save taxpayers money.
Yes.
Money that I hope we plow back into the research and development of new drugs, expanding coverage for people, and making our healthcare system work better for everyone involved. So this is big.
They really brag about it like it's something.
It's a huge deal that Congress stood up
if you're against
to Big
it,
Pharma.
You're right
Big
wing.
Pharma got this ban on price negotiation in the dark of the night. It never should have happened, and it has taken us how many years to get it set back? So this is really about, for me, yes, it's about Medicare, it's about prescription drug prices. It's also about
Do you really
standing
think
up
we're
to corporate
opposing Big
special
Pharma with this
interests.
bill?
Well, how many?
Well, here's the other part. Team Ford.
When you say Congress stood up to the pharmaceutical industry, how many Republicans voted in the Senate?
Oh my God, here we go.
0.
Yeah.
So who's standing up for the American people? Oh.
Yeah, some of us. But I have to say,
Really?
look, Big Pharma has had a grip
Oh my God.
on both sides of the aisle. And we've had Pharma hearings, both Democrats and Republicans. The night before the hearing, they're out at mixers and taking money from Big Pharma, and the next day they're supposed to hold them accountable.
Wait a minute, there are lobbyists in Washington.
I don't know. I don't see that.
I think I
Yeah,
met,
on both sides of the fucking
one when I
aisle.
was there, when I was in the Senate. So we have have the climate piece.
How is this
the
guy
farming
allowed to have a
piece.
program?
Also, we have
We live in a
people
fucking cartoon.
on the ACA will pay a lower premium.
Yep. So the
I know.
part of the Inflation Reduction Act is to
Fucking
make
piece of
sure
shit.
that people who get their care through the Affordable Care Act are able to continue to afford their health insurance. So to keep those premiums where they are now, otherwise people would have seen a big jump. That is the last thing we need at a time when people are already facing higher prices for food and gas.
Now, that must have...
So, fam, can you clarify that last part for me?
What's that?
The Affordable Care Act.
Well,
So now she's saying,
that's what they did. They pumped a ton of money into the
Yeah.
Affordable Care Act, back into it. So what she's trying to say is that anybody who has the Affordable Care Act, and in some situations it's going to be beneficial for some people who are holding on to it, but it doesn't fix everything as a whole. It's once again, it's just a Band-Aid solution of just constantly putting, as we know, we've had, how long has the Affordable Care Act been there for? Obama signed it when? I mean, it was a failed policy. So they're just thrusting a lot more money back into it, you know? And not to mention, if you go look at Katie Porter when she goes into the whole part where she starts to act like she's fighting for the people when Al Franken set it up for it, you know, I mean, just go look at her, you know, go look at her money. You'll see a J Street PAC or right on that, on Open Secrets. You will, it's you know, not the best people in the world fund her. And she kind of,
she wouldn't be out doing.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say she wouldn't be doing this. This is propaganda. She wouldn't be doing this propaganda on Al Franken. First of all, how the hell does this guy have a show? Like, I just cannot right now with the fact that he has a show. But of course we live in the United States. We're in a cartoon. We're in like Stranger Things and Westworld and Black Mirror combined, whatever. And like, so he has a show, she's on it. They're completely not talking about the IRS thing. They're making fun of it, right? Like in general. He gives her this layup so she can say the Democrats suggest that the Democrats are fighting for the people when we all know very well the Democrats are literally in charge right now and they've done got all for the people. Okay.
Ugats, fam.
You're
They've
making me
done
get
ugats.
Italian right here.
They've done ugats.
Ugats, fam. Ugats.
They get a lot of scuttle, a lot of cash.
They get a lot, but they've done shit scuttle, fam. They haven't given the people their scuttle.
Fam,
We need more scuttle.
They need more scuttle for the people. Go to slide 41. We're gonna skip a few over here. But I want to just kind of point this out because inside this Inflation Reduction Act, which is nothing more than Build Back Better, you have the IRS time bomb that's there, where they're going to come off all the money after us, even though Katie Porter tried to sell it as they're going after, you know, rich people. That's a lie. That's why they have all those weapons. They're coming after us. They don't need those weapons to go after rich people. It's ridiculous. Then she talks about like she's selling the healthcare part of it, acting like it's a big thing when it's not. We know the Affordable Care Act is what it is. Guys, you can do your own research on that. It's a failed piece of policy. It doesn't cover everybody. Yes, some people get some benefits from it, but as a whole, and we can ask Oz if he wants to. He's a healthcare guy. How the Affordable Care Act, what it really does. So they're resurrecting a zombie. They're trying to put, you know, time and money and effort into a Frankenstein that's already dead.
Yeah.
So here's the third part of the bill, right? Now it's kind of like once the talk has been out that the Inflation Reduction Act doesn't really reduce inflation, fam, the Democrats launch a major effort to sell the Inflation Reduction Act to voters. So, you know, she's in California, so she can dupe a lot of California people who are like acting like this is something big. Democratic lawmakers, members of President Biden's cabinet, and allied organizers and activists are kicking off a multi-pronged public relations campaign aimed at ensuring voters understand and appreciate the benefits of the $700 billion climate change and drug prices bill that Biden signed on Tuesday. Top Democrats believe that popular long-sought policy changes in so-called Inflation Reduction Act will help their party retain congressional majorities in November's midterm elections. So they really believe that this is going to help them, fam. Not realizing that IRS thing alone is all anybody who's independent, who's a non-political person is going to go, oh, F this. You're arming the IRS. Everybody hates the IRS. In Irvine on Thursday, Representative Katie Porter, a swing seat Democrat, stood in front of a hulking orange Hitachi excavator at the Irvine Ranch Water District, which is expanding its reservoir using funds from last year's $1 trillion infrastructure overhaul package. Look how they're trying to plug that in. Appearing alongside Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, Porter noted that the Democrats' latest legislation, the central pillars include $369 billion to combat climate change and long-sought changes to lower the cost of prescription drugs. Will continue to support the water district and similar facilities across America. The new law invests $4 billion in water conservation, efficiency, and restoration, and that supplements the more than $50 billion already allocated in bipartisan infrastructure law to help us modernize our water infrastructure, improve our drinking water supply, Katie Porter said. And we're going to skip those next three real quick. We're going to go down to slide 49, okay? I wanted to bring on Vivek G. Ramaswamy. Now, he was on Glenn Beck. I don't agree with this guy on a lot of things. He's a hardcore capitalist of sorts. But he's been making the rounds. He's been on Fox News, Fox Business, Glenn Beck, whatnot. And this guy, what he says in these next two clips, I think it's very important to point out. So this is him talking about the ESGs. In fact, fam, in the China panel you had the other day, there was a little segment and was one of our recent just little quick clips where TLAV, Ryan Christian, talked about the fact that they're selling these ESGs, right, as they're really something positive, when we know for a fact, and what we witnessed in the Netherlands, in Spain, Germany, and Italy, what's going around, and now it's going to come to the United States, and it's about to come to Canada, is that these ESGs, the environmental socialist governments of sorts, which is all about the co-option of the small farmer by putting out these nitrogen laws and selling it as a climate policy that's going to help our environment. And it's really just about consolidating and taking control of our food. Take a look at what Vivek had to say on The Blaze the other day.
These are questions that, whether you're on the left or right, these are important questions to talk about in the open. How do we address historical inequities? How do we address if shared global climate change is a challenge that deserves addressing? If it's true, then it actually is so fundamental that we ought to be talking about it in the open as citizens. And when we delegate that work to a small group of elites who just make the answers to those questions behind closed doors, we actually suck the air out of a democracy where you're supposed to settle those questions through free speech and open debate in the public square. So that's my problem with it.
You're also not sucking the air out of it. You are also creating the people, okay, that will lose the ability to ask logical questions.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? You won't be able to reason anymore. You won't be able to stand back because you will have no models of someone saying, no, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense to me, and can logically think things through. You have to model that.
And the reason you lose it, you're absolutely right about that. The reason you lose it is that when you use economic force to settle these questions, say the everyday workers at these companies, if they don't adhere to the social orthodoxy, to the ESG agenda that's been pushed down their throats, you're at risk of losing your job. You're at risk of getting fired. You're at risk of being denied a promotion. And I think that when you force people to actually face the economic sword for speaking their mind openly, then you're left with a country where people have to choose between the First Amendment and between the American dream. And that's what perpetuates this new culture of fear in the private sector, where we lose our ability to debate questions of, let's just say, take one issue, racial injustice, or another issue, global climate change. I mean, those are two of the big issues pushed by the ESG movement. The E is all about the climate change agenda. The S is all about the DEI and racial equity agenda. But if that's being pushed through economic force, effectively the kind of thing the government used to be concerned about, but now it's private companies pushing those same agendas, using capital to do it. If you're an everyday citizen, you might be at risk of losing your job or putting food on the dinner table if you don't bend the knee.
Listen, I'm not going to agree with all the things these guys said, but right here, Vivek was right on point. You know what I'm saying? And this is the thing when it comes to censorship, when they allow all these, and once again, they point out the economic wave that's coming with us, the economic force, right? You know what I'm saying? And then this next clip, fam, I don't know if you have anything to say about this, but this next clip ties it on up about when it comes to these economic forces, when it comes to these big banks, when it comes to this movement, about how what's going on with the liberals down the road and the left nowadays in America. I mean, this guy hits it right on the point here. Do you want to see this first, or do you want to make a comment really first on what he said?
No, just let it play, and then I'll make a comment after.
People will say to me, is this the private sector? Those banks can do whatever they want to do. We're for a free market. They're making the choice as individual banks.
Yeah, so this is so in order to really understand this, we're talking about the building blocks here. I think we've got to go back to the 2008 financial crisis.
Okay.
I think that's when a lot of this began, where they've duped both liberals and conservatives into submission with their own slogans. So what happened after the 2008 financial crisis was that Occupy Wall Street was on Wall Street's doorstep. Okay. And if you're Wall Street, you don't like Occupy Wall Street very much. You know, take money from those wealthy corporate fat cats and redistribute it to poor people to help poor people. Agree or not, that's what the old left had to say. Okay. But right around that time was the birth of this new ESG movement, the new 3-letter acronym movement broadly, DEI, CSR, corporate social responsibility, ESG, environmental social governance factors. And right around that time, what Wall Street said was, okay, you know what, we can get on board with that. That's a little easier. We can appoint some token minorities to our boards. We can muse about the racially disparate impact of climate change. We'll talk about systemic racism all you want. Don't talk about systemic financial risk. Effectively, to the new left, we expect you look the other way as long as you leave us alone, with the old Occupy Wall Street left getting defanged. So the way they defanged the old left was to say that, you know what, we will use our corporate power to advance your agendas, even more effectively than government's advancing your agendas. But we don't do it for free. We effectively expect that you look the other way when it comes to leaving our corporate power intact, which is the thing you wanted to attack. Now, that's how they duped the left. The way they duped the right, though, is they said that, you know what? You guys have always been in favor of big business. You've always been in favor of the free market. These are just private companies making decisions that you all have supported all along. So that's how both sides got duped into submission. Liberals forgot their skepticism of corporate power because they loved the causes that these corporations, including Wall Street and financial institutions, were pushing. But conservatives were duped into submission because they were told, well, you know, the free market can do no wrong. We memorized that back in 1980. And so there was the new rise of this new, I would say, hybrid monster of government power and state power that was far more powerful than either one. So that...
Fam? Was he lying when he talked about the way? I mean, they were defanged. The economic left, the one who went after, they're gone, and they duped them by saying, "Hey, man, we'll push your social and cultural issues within our company," and they all do it. You know what I'm saying? And like that, as long as you keep quiet about the finances. And then what he said about the right and saying, "Hey, it's the free market. This is capitalism. What do you want? Socialism? No, you got to go along with this, and you got to agree with this and stuff." However, go ahead. I was just going to say that those corporations eventually merge with the government, becoming fascism, and that's what happens when you believe in a free market.
But that's the thing. Like, I agree with everything he said, but he still makes the difference. He's still under the impression that these companies aren't private anymore. Yeah, they're not private, because the corporations have taken over. But my retort to that is he's right about the defanging and all of that. 100%. And it takes somebody like that to say it, right? Which is ironic that the left can't even figure it out for themselves. It's something similar to what I said earlier today about just the co-option of everything, of turning these people into the fascists. It will always lead to this. That's my point. That's the essence of capital. This is the pinnacle of it. Like, this is what happens. It's just, this is what happens. There's no, you can regulate, unless you regulate to death, and then it's not going to be a free market to some of these people. There's no such thing as a free market, is my point. Because, like, at the end of the day, one of these corporations are going to want to take over, and then it's going to turn into this or worse, which is the next step, fascism. Or you're going to regulate it to the point where it's not considered what they think of as free market. Yeah. So he's right. But again, this is like the result of that. 2008 really just got worse. After that, things didn't get better, things got worse. They just kept putting a bunch of band-aids on it, and now where we're at, where I mean, it's just bad.
Well, that was the complete takeover in 2008.
He's right, though.
Yeah, he was 1,000% right. That's the complete takeover, and that's what this bill is loaded with, fam. It's just more consolidation, of the big companies, of all the big people, and that's what it would build back better, and a shit ton of money to the IRS that's going to come looking for us, and if you think any differently, you're just stupid. But slide 47, Oz. And we're going to go slides 47 and 48 really quick to get out of here. But what do the people think about Katie Porter? Instead of her just seeing her right now, right, where they call her out for the IRS stuff when she has a little whiteboard showing shit, fuck around and find out. Like, she's something serious over here. Once again, now they're elevating her. Now they're praising her. Now they're lifting her up. Oh, Katie Porter is just a solid voice that's sticking her neck out for us. Look at this next slide, what it says here. This right.
Oh, God.
If we put Stacey Abrams and Katie Porter in charge of things, the whole world would be fixed in about 3 weeks. Yeah, for Center for American Progress and another person from J Street PAC that take some of the worst fucking.
Give me whatever drugs they're taking, please, to come to that conclusion.
This is the shit they're saying.
Like, what are you on? Seriously? Come on. Oh, my God.
This is they're saying.
Oh, God. I just can't. America is so propagandized beyond repair. I really do think so. It's just insane.
That's it, fam. We got to get out of here. We got another show in 5 minutes. We got to jump on, fam. Anything else to talk about right now?
No, guys, that's it. Like I said, look out for a stream tomorrow. Pasta's also going to be doing one, right? You're going to do I'm
not going to be doing a
video?
stream. I'm going to do a video. I'm going to post it up after. Tim Canova's supposed to be sticking his head around Addy Ads. We're going to talk about what happened in Florida the other day with DeSantis completely duping the people right now. It was not a good win. It was a big blow again for election integrity last week when Ron DeSantis, when having the chance to go after Brenda Snipes, instead tucked his tail between his leg, protected his establishment friends, which deal with it, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, Ron DeSantis is openly protecting Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Openly. Deal with it. Deal with it, Republicans. But anyways, we'll get into that tomorrow. Deborah Wilson left a tip. You guys have outdone yourselves here. Much love and thanks. Thank you to the 77 hockey sticks fam, 78 now people on Rokfin, and to the almost 300 people on YouTube. Wednesday at noon on in the Pacific Coast time, fam, Whitney Webb will be joining us here for an hour on the Convo Couch, talking about the Iran-Contra affair, Epstein's relationship to it, and anything else you got to ask about Epstein in her new book, fam. You looking forward to that?
Yeah, I'm excited to have the brain come in here and talk to us. I think it's awesome to pick her brain. So I'm excited about that. Are we having a guest prior or no? Just Whitney, right?
Just Whitney. I was hoping to try to get hold of somebody else, but they have not responded back. So, but right now we have Whitney for sure, and we can get that going, fam. Are you on the news desk tonight or no?
No, fam. Gosh. I have some time off. Give me a second.
I don't know why they're allowing. I would have you working right now. Like I would have had you in there. Get into work. That's
Exploiter.
That's right.
Typical libertarian.
It's Russia. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Pasta Gardula.
I am Purella.
Oz on the ones and twos, love. Y'all. Beauty and the Boomer. You guys got one today? No Beauty and the Boomer today. So
but where are we gonna go? We're gonna be live soon.
I have no clue if that's live or if that's taped. Thomas Dickinson has thrown his nickel into the ring. Thank you, Thomas Dickinson, for the Super 8 contribution, fam. We are out of here, and guess what? It is always appreciated on the couch, fam.
Come out. I'm sending the Kremlin after you.
No, you're not.
Yeah.